if you like what we do here at Off the Deep End and wish to support us, the best thing you can do is to share it on your social media, but also you can tell your mother, sister, cousin, auntie, the kid that's walking by you down the street, your gym crush, anybody about the episode you're listening to and why you liked it. There's also another way to support us, and it's to go to the link posted in the description and on our Facebook page. And when you become a subscriber, you'll have access to subscriber-only content and ad-free listening for every single episode we put out. No matter what you choose to do, I do greatly appreciate you for tapping in, and please do reach out to our Facebook page so we can chat. Tell us what you feel, what you think, what you don't like, what I could improve upon. At the end of the day, this is meant to be a conversation starter. And just to be completely open and honest, every single penny that goes to the Off the Deep End program with subscribers is going to help other people by spreading the word via ads or getting new microphones so we can have more people at a time. And I really do appreciate every single listener. So thank you so much. I hope you have a great day and don't pass the pain. Are you thinking about making a podcast? Spotify has a platform that lets you make one. And if I can figure it out, you definitely can too. You can create your own content all in one place for free with zero hangups and even earn money as soon as you get started. Spotify lets you record and edit episodes from your phone or computer so you can go mobile, just like I enjoy to do. My favorite thing about it is that you can create video episodes if you wish and upload them to wherever podcasts are heard. You can even set up subscriptions or, if you're like me, listener support options for listeners to help you grow. I 10 out of 10 recommend the Spotify for Podcasters app. Or, why don't you just step over to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started on your own podcast. All right, we are live. Thank you so much for joining me all the way from the East Coast. I know time traveling isn't always easy, and it's only 5:14 over here. So,
hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So let's start at the beginning, before the beard was even there. What was your childhood like, man?
Pretty stereotypical childhood. Grew up in a small town just outside of Amish country, Ohio. 2,500 people, 2 stoplight town. So, quite the metropolis over a 1 stoplight town. So, grew up, we didn't have a lot. We scraped and got by and started working young so I can help support the family and do all that stuff. But normal childhood, though, played baseball in the summer, football, basketball, ran track, went fishing all the time with friends. And but there's just only so much a small town can offer. So, as I grew up, it became apparent that I needed to get out.
Yeah, absolutely. So what made you ultimately, sign your name on that dotted line and go to serve the military?
I think it just has to do, there's a few things. One, like I said, I knew there wasn't a whole lot my town had to offer. I wasn't quite mature enough. I wanted to go to college, but I knew at the same time, I knew I was smart enough to know that wouldn't work, that I would fail, flunk out of college and just be further behind in life. So I knew that I had to get out of town, but not in that direction. I needed to mature. And both my grandpas were in the military. My dad's side served in the Army during World War II. He deployed, did the Battle of the Bulge and all that. Took France back from the Nazis and all that. And then my other grandpa, he was in the Navy, and he was a gunner's mate, and he was stationed out in San Diego. So, to tell you the truth, I was going to I was in the Army all the way up until probably 2 months before I graduated high school. Mm-hmm. And I just couldn't get the guy to leave me alone, to be honest with you. He just wanted me to do so much in the DEP program, contacting me every day, and to the point where I walked right by his office and went in and started talking to the Navy recruiter, and he kind of won me over. I had another buddy going in on the CB program, and we decided to go in on the buddy program and leave together. And I actually had to do it without telling my mom. My mom did not want me to join the military. She didn't want me to leave town. She was nervous. She was scared. So I came home and I woke her up from a nap, and I had told her that I had just gotten back from Cleveland. I had just went and signed on the dotted line, and it was the first time in my life, like, my mom just looked at me and turned back, like rolled back over and went back to bed, like without saying a word to me. And I don't know, like that like really sunk my heart. I had never disappointed my mom like that before. But ultimately, in the end, she came around, and now she's super proud of me and happy for everything that I've accomplished.
That's great, man. I think there's nothing more special than having a parent who is not just receptive of what your dreams, your goals, your aspirations are, but also to pat you on the back when you get them done. So that's awesome. I absolutely love it, man. Sweet. So what was your first duty station? So you're joining the military. I will assume it. Let's roll it back to boot camp. So what was boot camp like for you?
So I did a pretty good job of staying quiet and staying out of the way. I will tell you that the first getting to Chicago, I got there at, I don't know what it was, 10 o'clock at night or something like that. As soon as you roll off the bus, they're yelling at you and they're taking you in. I can't remember the building number, but you're getting your head shaved and you're putting all your belongings in a box and getting it all sent home and all that stuff. Well, I remember I get there on that first night, and we're all lined up all along the starboard side of the P-way there. We're all lined up, and I hear this guy yelling. I mean, he's got to be about 30, 40 feet away from me. And he's, who the fuck do you think you are? You think
Stepping
you
on
could
my
just,
flags.
he said, you think you could just lounge around and lean on my bulkhead? You better fucking get off that bulkhead right now. And I got my arms crossed, and I'm like, kind of like, oh man, somebody's fucking up. I got my right foot thrown over my left foot, my arms crossed, leaning up against the bulkhead, just looking around. I'm like, oh man, somebody's fucking up. And he just storms up and he comes right up to me and starts yelling at me. He's like, get the fuck off my bulkhead. And I was looking around. I was like, what the fuck is he talking about? I was looking underneath of my feet and everywhere. I was like, I had no idea what I was doing wrong. I didn't know what a bulkhead was. That was kind of my introduction to the military, to, hey man, you better pay attention and not take whatever knowledge you have for granted, because you don't know shit about anything that's going on right now. So that was a bit lesson learned on opening night for me. And then I just kind of tried to stay underneath or in the shadows, I guess you could say, and stay out of the limelight.
Yeah, I know that first night is crazy for so many people. You don't know who you are anymore, and they don't know who you are, but they're going to show you who you are. And for a lot of people, boot camp's super easy. It was easy for me. I didn't have any issues physically or whatever, mentally. But for some people coming from different backgrounds, this might be their first time having a shower, or like I got the pleasure of being around people who had never experienced these aspects of life, whether it was seeing somebody who looks differently than you, seeing someone who doesn't
Yeah,
talk to God
absolutely.
every night before bed.
Mm-hmm.
One guy was like, y'all don't pray before going to bed.
Yeah.
And it was hilarious seeing somebody from Tennessee. He was like, your mom's gonna whoop your ass when you all get home. I'll tell you this right now. I was laughing, and one of the guys was like, "Dude, I've never even met my parents," and so to see him have this crazy culture shock of, oh, you don't know who you're next to, you don't know what their life is like, and learning how to integrate with other people's cultures, because
Right.
America
Yeah.
is so diverse. Oh my God, like corn-fed motherfuckers from lands like that, they
Yeah.
get along great with me because I always wanted to get out of the city. I never wanted to grow up living in a place where there's serious drug epidemics and stuff like that. I want to learn and be around people who are respectful, who have big work ethics and great hearts is what I really look for.
Yeah, absolutely. Mentally, it's not really that challenging. You get a little homesick or whatever. There was only one time that really kind of pulled at my heartstrings, and it was the first letter I got from my mom. Like, I had been there for probably 3 weeks at that time, and I got a letter from my mom. And to her, it was just normal talk. She was just telling me about everything going on back home. But then she happened to mention that, oh, I made this big meal for the family to come out the other day, and she was going through everything that she had made and everything, and then she had mentioned about how she's got to start learning how to make less because I'm not around, and I had all this leftover, I really liked her homemade noodles,
Oh
and
yes.
and she said how she had to learn how to make less now that I'm not around anymore, and like that was a little bit of a piercing in my heart because like I had like you don't think about things like that whenever you leave home and all that stuff, and like I read that and I just kind of I cried. I put
Yeah.
my head down on the pillow and I cried because that was the first time I ever missed home, and the first time I think it was my first time I ever realized that life will never be the same again. So that hit me. But other than that, like I'm with you on the whole diversity, culture, all that stuff. Like I am one of those big meat and potato guys from the Midwest that you're talking about, but I
Oh
couldn't
yeah.
wait to I had no problem getting along with there was this little Dominican guy from I can't remember if he was from the Bronx or from Queens, but I know he's from New York City. And man, he talked 1,000 miles an hour with an accent that I had never heard before, and it took all of my concentration just to be able to keep up with what he was saying. And then I another guy that like hung out in our group was this guy from Georgia, and he was one of those like you said that prays before bed. I mean, this guy was just he carried around his Bible he reminds me like now looking back of Bubba like from Forrest Gump, but he was super into the Bible. His last name was Pink, which was really weird but awesome at the same time. But I had to get used to him because when he talked, he would say it almost seemed like his whole sentence was one word because like
Yeah.
everything just blended together whenever he talked. So again, I'd have to sit there and stare at him and try to figure out what he was saying to be able to keep up in the conversation. But man, you want to talk about just getting lost in other people's cultures and really enjoying uh, the realization of just how big the world is and everything out there. That was probably one of my fondest memories of boot camp was being able to experience those things.
Absolutely. I'll never forget Mr. Wilburn now. He just went officer after a bunch of years enlisted. He worked on the flight deck for a while. And I remember going through boot camp with him. His name was Tennessee. I didn't even know his name. We just called him Tennessee. There was a one guy, Batsy, it was his last name. He was from Africa and he joined to gain citizenship for him and his family. So
Mm-hmm.
it to the day he graduated boot camp, he got asthma because he didn't know how to swim. Shocker. A lot of people who don't live around water probably don't know how to swim. Like he didn't have
Right.
that stuff. Him having running water was a luxury that I took for granted and didn't even know. So it was wild to see him
Oh
fall
yeah.
apart when he got, when they changed the hat from the recruit to sailor or to Navy, and you get that Navy ball cap for the first time. He was crying and hugging all of us, and I thought it was this huge kind of out of world experience to see how privileged and how thankful I am for the small shit, man. Drinking bottled water and not worrying about me giving me
Yeah.
the shits later. It's all nice stuff, right?
Yeah.
And just being able to reconnect with people over this, right, over Zoom is super special, and I love it. I love it, and I love getting able to connect with other people who like you and me, we got along pretty good, but we never had
Yeah.
any long and we've had a couple long in depth conversations, but nothing crazy. And now I get
Right.
to
Yeah.
hear about your experience. I love it all, man.
Yeah. Like we were acquaintances on the ship. We were never friends to the level where we hung out in our free time or anything like that. Um, but it's crazy that I didn't have to. You didn't have to be my friend for me to understand that you were a good person and a reliable person.
I
So
appreciate that.
yeah, yeah. So I as many times as I ran into you in the hangar bay, I was always interested in you and knowing that you were being successful just because you were just always such a good dude.
I really do appreciate that. I always knew that if I saw somebody who's tall and they look either red from the sun or red with the beard or sorry, with the hair, I knew you were out there somewhere. So I love going up to the crash shack. I love hanging out, experiencing what your job was about. Getting out of
Yeah,
my comfort zone. We don't have to sit in these boxes that the Navy categorizes us in. Like I'm a bosun mate. I do old school sailor shit. I bring on bombs. I drive fast boats. If somebody jumps in the water, I go out and get them. I tie up the ship. I untie the ship.
Yeah.
I fix things all night sometimes. I do some weird jobs. When the QMs can't figure out how to put up um new line or rope as it's known to
Mhm.
to get the flags up there and the halyards, I spent all night splicing that. I'd sit in there, I'd throw in a dip, have 3 Red Bulls, and I'd splice all night with a red flashlight because we can't have the normal flashlights because,
Right. Yeah.
oh no, look out for Iran, right? They wanna act reckless all the time. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So what made you go ABH? Which was what
Funny
was specific
story.
about it?
Going back to the going in on the buddy program, I didn't want to join as an ABH. I wanted to be a UT. I wanted to be a utilities man. I have an uncle who's a journeyman pipe fitter, and he had advised me that because at the time I was only going to do the one contract deal and get out,
Yeah.
and he made good money. My cousins were getting in the pipe fitting career field, so I was like, yeah, I'll do that. And me and my buddy were both going to go in and be utilitiesmen. Well, I went in before my buddy. Um, he actually had to go back to MEPS 2 days later because he had to clear his urine because he was following the band Fish around Ohio. They did like 3 stops in Ohio and Pittsburgh. He followed them around and basically got high for 3 days straight. So he had to come back 2 days later. Well, I went in and they had told me there's no CB, there's no utilities man seats for A school, but I'll tell you what, if you come in undesignated, when a seat becomes available, we'll give it to you and you can go to A school. So it just sounded good to me. I
Mhm.
guess I guess they probably just read naive on my forehead or something because I took it hook, line, and sinker. And then my buddy Clancy, he went in a couple days later, and they had told him the same thing, and he said, "Okay, well, hold on." His big brother was EO2 with the CB's equipment operator. He called his brother, and his brother talked to the recruiter and said, Clancy's not signing anything and not signing up for the Navy unless he's going in as a utilities man." So he come out the room, signed up as a utilities man, and I was just like, what in the world? Like, he came home and told me that, and I was like, they just told me they didn't have any seats. So I don't know.
A mess. I hate liars. I hate recruiters that lie the most because like they told me that I was going to get stationed over here in Everett or or in Bremerton or somewhere on the West Coast, right?
Right. Yeah.
Even if San Diego, that I wouldn't have to spend $700 every time I wanted to see my family or my wife. And I dealt with multiple crisis situations personally with my family when I was in the Navy, especially when I was deployed. Losing a father is not fun, but like I needed to be a present part of my family for these things. It was $700 every time I flew home.
Yeah.
Seven hundred
Mm-hmm.
dollars from Virginia, and it's all fun and games, but then I got to fly back. So
Yeah.
you imagine where all my money went. But
Yeah.
oh goodness, it's so wild. So what was it like ranking up for you? Was it difficult to advance in the military? For me, it was very very simple. You study your ass off, you
So
do all the things, and you win.
yeah, so a mixed bag for me because going back to the why I became an ABH, like I got stationed. My first ship was the John F. Kennedy down in Jacksonville, Florida. That was my first duty station, Mayport, Florida, to be precise. But that ship was on its last leg. We had done a deployment. See, back whenever I first joined, you couldn't just strike out right away. You had to wait. And I joined as an E1, so I had to wait until I became an E3 before I could start even thinking about getting a different rating. And the ship it was about to be decommissioned. They were strongly considering decommissioning it to the point where they brought a bunch of detailers on board and signed people up for schools. So I got the UT school that I had always wanted. So they had signed me up, and I was like, cool. Well, then about 8 months went by, and I had already skipped one third class test, and I was about to skip another one because they kept telling me like, hey, we can't send you to Texas to go to school until there's a seat available, to the point where I was just like, forget it, just pull it, and I'll take the ABH third class test, because at the time I was still going to get out after my first tour, and it was getting to the point where I was going to spend this whole tour as an E3 and below and not promote, not even give myself a chance to promote. So I wanted my chance to promote, pulled the school, took the test and made third. So I didn't make third till I was in the Navy for 3.5 years. And then I left the ship as a third class. And when I got to my first shore duty over in Pensacola, Florida, I started playing rugby, and I became pretty good at rugby pretty fast to the point
I
where
saw the pictures. I was like, he played rugby.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. I played for the Navy for a couple of years, and my command was fully supportive of that. They, hey, go for it. We'll give you TAD anytime you need it. We'll temporarily assign you so that you can go play, go leave, be with the team. But they made me understand that, you're not going to get a good eval as long as you're doing that. So I really had to claw to make second class because I was doing it off of promotable evals. Yeah, I was getting promotable because I was going and playing for the Navy. And at the time, I had already went through the firefighting academy to go to shore duty. So here I am thinking I'm going to get out after my second tour and I'm going to go do DOD firefighting. So it really doesn't matter if I make any more rank. That's what I was telling myself. So I was focusing on rugby. And then when I was at work, I was focusing on getting certifications that would transfer over to the DOD side, getting my all my pumper operator license and stuff to drive all the fire engine trucks, and going to EMT school and getting my EMT basic and doing all that stuff, working towards my paramedic because I thought I was going to get out. So I didn't really study a whole lot for advancement as far as an AVH goes. I was getting qualified elsewhere or just having fun playing rugby. So it took until I got to my third command before I started taking promotion seriously. And then, I mean, that was the TR where I met you. I went there as the second class, and then
And you made first. Yeah, I remember the day you made first. I'll never be able to forget successful moments for other people. I feel that because I feel like I was just, maybe my jealousy bone is just broken in my body, but every time I see somebody else succeed, it like lights this huge fire of excitement, emotion, or whatever you would have call it. I love it. Right. I love seeing people do great things. And so when you made first class, I'm like, ABH1 Bliss. Yep, there's another one. And then I spent more time around you, just getting to know how people look up to you and how you, the effect you have on other people was alarming to me as well. Not just because you're taller than all them, but because you were kind. And I think that a lot of qualities in the military, one, being tall does help people look up to you, not just physically, but also in a militaristic standpoint. Like when I'm looking for a strong military leader, I think of muscular, tall, always calm, never freaks out, gets the job done, takes care of his boys and girls, right? So, and that's how everybody usually described you. That's how they described Senior Chief Brontes. That's how they described Senior Chief Osbury. That's how there's so many great leaders out there that really stood out to the people, not just because they were of how they acted, but who they appeared to be, a physical form. I always am like usually attracted to leaders who also are into fitness, who also take care of their body, who use physical fitness as an outlet to get all the negatives so they can be focused, calm leaders. And that's something I try to emulate as a husband and as a family man now that I'm out. What was one of the craziest things that you saw from the TR? Because TR deployment crew in 2015 was quite the crew, right? Everybody knows it. If you're listening to this and you're in the Navy and you're never part of that crew, I know it sucks to suck. But unfortunately, the 2015 deployment crew of the TR was just the best. So what was some standout moments for you?
Oh, it goes back to everything you said. And it's a sentiment that's shared by a lot of people. That deployment crew was awesome. Everything about it, or everything from the personnel to the ship. The ship, man, it ran. It was a good running ship. We didn't have a lot of issues with catapults breaking down, arresting gear breaking down, elevators breaking down, all this stuff that I was used to. When I was on the Kennedy, they were scared to pull the locks out on L2 at one point in time because they weren't sure if the cables were going to be able to hold it or not. I watched the deck edge door. I watched the cable break snap on it one time. You could see the motor burning up on the platform, and then all of a sudden that cable snapped, and that door just took off. And you want to talk about heavy? I mean, when it hit, it you would have thought it turned the ship. I mean, it was pretty crazy. So I came from a ship that was barely able to stay together, and the TR coming out of RCOH, it was just a good running ship. And the crew, we were together. We were a pretty experienced crew, considering we started our workup cycle in October of 2013, and we were out to sea at just a steady rate from 2013 all the way through the beginning of 2015. I mean, we picked up other people's CQ periods. We just did a lot of time together, and the crew was awesome. And like, one of my favorite moments, my crash crew, by the way, the 2015 crash crew that I was on, that was my favorite crew that I'd ever been a part of. I mean, and I tell them that we do reunions every year. They a lot of them fly over here to Virginia, and I got a 1 acre backyard, and we just camp out, and we just, we just have a weekend of it. And I tell them all the time, like, hey, I've been in a lot of crews, and they're my favorite crew. And a lot of them were one tour sailors, and that was their only crew. And they think I'm just, saying it because they're there. And I'm, no, like, they were my favorite. Like, we just got along. The camaraderie was at the highest I've ever seen it. And when we had pulled out on that deployment, it's sometimes whenever you're the boss, it's hard to be an asshole. It's hard to be a dickhead sometimes. But we used to emphasize on studying and training a lot, and it wasn't always in their best interest. Sometimes they just wanted to play games on their phone or watch a movie that had just come out. But we made sure that we put in the time studying and all that stuff. And we had 40 people in crash, and we had 22 people take the advancement exam. And out of the 22 that took it, 11 advanced and 1 got capped. So I had 12 out of the 22 advanced. And V1 as a whole is 160 people. And as a whole, they had 15 people advance, including our 12. So it was a huge moment for me to know that we were able to accomplish that and still stay as close as we were, and still have that camaraderie level high, and still have a high morale and all that stuff. And just it was the best feeling in the world, honestly, to see all those other guys. Because, like I said, advancement, really, I didn't choose a path for advancement in the Navy that I would recommend to anybody else for as long as it took me to make each rank. But to be able to, I've never really been about myself, man. I think I learned from my mom, I take a lot of pleasure in seeing other people taste success, seeing other people happy, seeing other people smile. That's what really does it for me, man. If it affects me in some way where I got to work longer, or maybe I don't get to eat that chow rotation or whatever, that never really bothered me too much, because if that's what it took for the long game, the end game, for them to have that success and see the joy that it brought to them, like, that's what it's all about, man. That's all I ever really cared about. So to be able to see that on that deployment, man, that really stuck out to me.
And that's absolutely amazing. That's exactly, I didn't know you were going to answer like that, but I was hoping for an answer similar to that, because knowing you and just having the interactions, and I try to observe everything and try to psychoanalyze how people act and the character that they have beyond their uniform. And I love it. I love it that you get together with everybody every year and reconnect, because that's such a powerful, and more importantly, it's needed. It's honestly needed. The vets, as soon as we switch commands, nobody talks about it, but when we switch commands, we lose everybody. It's like we develop this family. We're spending 365 with them, unless we're on leave, or unless we're out in town, just or whatever, or unless we're staying out in town. But a lot of the people, like me, I was geobadging, so I lived on the ship for 4 years, and that means I had everybody else become my family. And
Mm-hmm.
when a lot of people leave the military with that same similar situation, and they don't have the camaraderie, they don't have the person who's helping them focus on training. And training is a major part of mental health when you do it properly, because it shows your subordinates, people under you, that you care. And that is a big thing that a lot of people that I experienced in reactor departments didn't get. They didn't get that sense of camaraderie. They got worked to death, and sadly,
Yeah,
they didn't have the whole. They didn't have this is a training for me because they care thing. This is training me for they want to run us into the ground kind of thing.
right. Yeah. Unfortunately, you see that a lot more and more. You see a heavy thumb in the Navy because people just want to get the job done. They don't care. They're just like my wife, man. They had my wife is still in the military, and she's a chief. And her ship that she was on did their advancement ceremony today at 13:30, and it was done on purpose to keep people on the ship longer. I mean, they're fast cruising tomorrow. Like, she leaves tomorrow morning to fast cruise for 5 days. They could have easily done their their advancement ceremony at any point during
In
that
those
5 day
five
fast.
days, yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
my wife, she was telling me that they had all these pre-checks. I mean, everybody's got pre-checks that they got to do before the ship gets underway. So this pre-checklist that they got to go through now comes to a standing halt, so that you can go to this advancement ceremony at 13:30 the day before you're getting locked on the boat for 5 days. I mean, it's
People got
just
kids. People got kids,
it,
got families.
yeah, there's a lot going on, and people, I don't know. I really don't understand what their end game is, because you can get a lot more work done with a happy crew than keeping a disgruntled crew on board longer. Like, I don't know.
Oh yes. Captain Clapperton and Captain Greco were super, super into taking care of your people. And that's one thing that I
Mm-hmm.
took away from them. Now when it comes down to how I do things, and this I kind of translated that into what I do nowadays, whether I'm doing gun training or physical training and stuff like that, to staying in shape, and staying hard to kill, hopefully, for the rest of my life. But it's really important to me to make sure I say, am I taking care of everything else for me? Am I pushing it too hard today? And the answer should be yes on most days, but every now and then I gotta remind myself, okay, let's take a deep breath. There's no need to rush it, and that's important to do with your subordinates as well, especially as a young leader. Like
Yeah,
we come from wherever we came from bumfuck Egypt sometimes, and then we learn so much from people up above us, and a lot of the experiences and a lot of the leadership practices held at a higher are held at a high standard. They're actually pretty low as far as standards go, because leadership standards have to make one of two things really important, in my opinion. One, work productivity is essential. If you're doing
oh
something
yeah.
and it's decreasing work productivity, it's
Mm-hmm.
not working. And if your people are not excited to do what the fuck you tell them, there should be another problem right there too. So there's the two things
Yeah,
that I see.
absolutely, absolutely. The 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 productivity is, especially like where I come from in crash and salvage, there's a lot of preservation work that goes into place. I mean, I'm sure as a bosun's mate, like,
Oh
there's just a
yeah.
lot of preservation work is not fun. There's nothing fun about knocking rust off stuff, needle gunning, or shining brass to keep it you know a certain color. But it's just, you can there's a bad way of leadership, there's a way to be a boss about it, or there's a way to be a leader about it. And I used to love going out there and being with the guys, even if I wasn't exactly shining a fire nozzle, just being out there and checking on them, making sure everything's going good, and not just talking into their ear all the time, man. It is just never the way to get things done, because I've had leaders, and other people have had leaders around me, where it's just, I don't know, it's a bad experience for everybody. And
Absolutely.
that's how you lose good sailors too, because there's plenty of good sailors that get that one bad leader that just pushes them out the door.
Hmm. Yeah, I wanted to say that every time I see um some people on social media and stuff saying, the words FTN, fuck the Navy. So
Yeah.
I always reach out to them and say, hey man, what's going on? Is there anything that, any advice I could give you that about how to improve your situation? Because when you're stuck in a spot for 4 years and you're unhappy about it, it doesn't get better if you're unhappy about it. You have to do some
Yeah.
things
Oh
to
yeah.
put those positive
Hmm.
indicators in place. And no matter how frustrating it gets, you don't want to stay in that level of frustration. But a lot of it usually is some leader or somebody who wants to be a leader, but they're actually a dictator. And I understand that that's how the military works. It's a dictatorship on some levels, but it doesn't have to be. And that doesn't mean we need to be weak. It doesn't mean we need to relax our standards, but it does mean
Right.
we can approach different things differently. There's new generations that have came around, and I'm not saying that all the things that come with the new generations are good. I promise I'm not, because I don't think so. Some people are fucking weak and soft. I get it,
Oh
but
yeah.
there's a lot of great things we can do to increase work productivity, though.
I found one of the most successful traits I had as a leader was just showing people my vulnerabilities from time to time.
Mm.
Because I've worked for people that were right no matter what, even whenever you can show them right to their face that they were wrong, and rather than show some sort of vulnerability and show the ability to learn from somebody junior than you, they would they would take the, I don't know, I don't want you don't want to call it the high road, but they would just take that road where it didn't matter whatever they were right, whether they were wrong or not, they were right. And I just, oh man, there's just nothing wrong with showing people that you don't know everything. You can learn something from anybody and everybody. And I've worked with some real fucking doofuses in my time. I mean, like, just you just working alongside them, and you're like, how did that recruiter think it was a good idea to put this person in the Navy?
Mm-mm.
Just real fucking stupid. And
Yeah.
I don't mean to knock people like that, but I mean, like, there are just some real fucking stupid people that you come across sometimes.
Oh yeah.
But you can still, I mean, I'm telling you, man, as long as you just put your guard down enough to give them a chance, like, you can still learn something from people like that. I think
Absolutely. And I
you
think
can, even if it's learning what not to do. like,
exactly. Learn
you
at
can learn
least
from
at
other
least pick
people's
up on
mistakes.
that.
Yeah.
Pride and ego are the two downfalls of all great people in every single movie. The villain's like, oh, this is my next plan. I'm gonna do this, and then the superhero saves the day. That's usually a lesson there to show you and to show our children, our youth, that pride and ego are not a good thing ever. It's great to be a vulnerable leader and accept new knowledge and new information. A lot of the
Hmm.
times, as a leader, you're not directly involved in the operation. You're overseeing the people who are in charge of smaller groups, especially as you rank up. Like
Hmm.
when they put me
Yep.
in charge of 90 people, I was more a hands-off leader when it came to the actually work being done. I delegated that, and I spent more time making sure that my sailors are okay. Is everything good back home? What what's up with your mom's heart attack she had last week? I knew it all. I knew whose
Hmm.
family just died,
Yeah.
and I made it a point to make sure that let my sailors know that they are looked out for, they cared. And then when I went to leave, they ended up actually crying a bunch on the day that I had to leave because they had such a strong, relationship tied into me. I was like not really their dad, but more like their uncle, the uncle or cousin that's a little bit older that they didn't even know they needed. Yeah, I can't stand bad leaders. It really bothers me, and I try to make a point to let them know that they are bad and in which ways they are bad so they can improve. And it doesn't come from a place of me trying to revolt or be pissed off or whatever. I just want them to be great so that we can all be great together. And it's not a,
Right.
you gotta sometimes you gotta check that ego at the door every
I'm
time.
telling you, I can tell you for from experience that it's getting a lot harder to be a good leader in the Navy, though.
Mm,
Like, it's the I hate going down this road, man, because it's so, I don't want to say cliche, but it seems to be the common thing that people say nowadays, where we're kind of taking the side of the junior sailor more and more, and giving whatever they say or whatever their complaint is the benefit of the doubt over the more senior sailors.
mm.
Uh, it's so hard to describe, man, because I remember so many things about being a junior sailor and about, I don't want to say back in my day, because I also believe that it's harder to be a junior sailor these days than what it was whenever I was a junior sailor. So I hate to say back in my day, but there was a lot of times back in my day whenever you were just told to shut up and go to work and earn, like they always used to say rank has its privileges, and those privileges are eroding more and more day by day, year by year. And the junior sailor, they have a lot more freedoms and a lot more avenues to make complaints about senior sailors, which is, there's a lot of justified stuff going on out there where people are like, there's, oh, man, leadership just doing wrong things, man. But
Absolutely.
it's gotten to the point now where if somebody leaves a random comment in the CO suggestion box, then that sailor, the chief or the lieutenant or whoever, needs to prove their innocence, not the other way around. And
that's not positive.
No, it's not. So it sucks whenever you get a bad leader, and it sucks whenever you get a group of junior sailors who are just shitty people.
Oh yeah.
That can take down a good team just as fast.
Yeah, I can't stand that. I faced a lot of issues when I got back after the TR crew left, and I was still on the West Coast on the TR. Afterwards, there was I had to help launch an investigation into sexual harassment of our junior sailors. Our young women were being sexually harassed by our uppers in deck department. So I had to, I admit it. I absolutely, they asked me if I did, and I said, yeah. What the fuck are you going to do about it? Because they're sexually harassing women on a regular basis, and then I just freaked out. I couldn't do it anymore. The second I hear about you harassing a young lady, that's someone's daughter, or even if it was a guy, I would do the same thing, because you're sexually harassing another sailor. That's one thing. If you're telling somebody to shut the fuck up and do their job, shut the fuck up and do your job. This is the military.
Right. Yeah.
Right now, you might be sweeping right now, and that might not be life or death. But having a habit, a negative one, of not listening to your instruction, it forms habits, and habits can kill you just like that.
Absolutely.
You have to look out for shit on the flight deck. Keep your head on a swivel on the flight deck. You shut up and do what you're told. Pretty simple.
Yeah, I guess a better way of putting it is, I guess, like, more and more and more the junior sailors are allowed to ask why about everything. And so sometimes there's not and like you said, on the flight deck, there is not a lot of opportunity to explain why. Get the fuck where you're supposed to be. We don't have time to tell you why. We can go flight deck control after this recovery is complete, and we can explain it to you why. But too many young people out there today in society just needing a why for everything. And
there's a time and a place. There's a time and a place. Sometimes it's just grown folk business, and you just need to do what you're told, and that's something that I think that is taught at home.
Yeah, I never had a problem going back and explaining why after the fact.
Yeah.
Because again, if people are interested and they want to know why, good on you.
Yeah.
We can, and there's good learning opportunities. But there are junior sailors out there too that want to know why, so that they can form a complaint. They want more whys. They want to ask why enough until they can get a justified complaint, at least justified in their eyes. It's so, the military is a tough place, and there's a lot of whys that you give up the freedom to ask whenever you raise your right hand. But I'm telling you, it's getting hard. It's getting harder and harder. I think I retired for a time.
Oh yeah,
or maybe it's just rank. Maybe I just climbed up in rank and got to the point where you get high enough in rank, and then sometimes the whys are getting asked from above instead of below. Enough people below asking or putting complaints in, and XO wants to know why. What's going on in your shop? Oh my God, nothing. I promise. Like, nothing.
Like, sir, sometimes it's best just to do the officer thing and do officer stuff. So right now I'm a part of a local vet group, and we have a guy who was in the Army, and he was enlisted first, so he's a Mustang. So, but we still crack officer jokes with us, and back and forth between him and us. And he told me last week, he said, "You know what? Don't worry. I watched the PowerPoint on this, and I fell apart. I was lifting. We were exercising together, and I could not stop laughing. But a lot of people do go officer for a multitude of reasons. Why did you remain a chief?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, it took me a little longer to make chief than what I thought it would. But I was still getting pushed to go the warrant officer route. I had a training officer with me when I was in Pensacola that really wanted me, and I did. I put in the warrant officer package a couple of times, but uh, ultimately I pulled the third one. I was just like, you know what? I we ultimately, you want to know the real, like, cut and dry. I wanted to stay enlisted because it's just something about being for the boys, man.
I
I don't know.
love it. Yep.
You got to be for, like, it's just something about being for the boys. I still like that ability to just go out and, they say pound skid. I still like that ability to go out and pound skid and just be with everybody.
Mm.
And you kind of lose that when you become an officer. And another reason is you give up, man, you give up so much control over where you can be sent or what you can do once you become a commissioned officer. At least you still have some, as an enlisted person, you still have some negotiating power with the detailer and trying to get where you want to be for your family. But man, I knew if I became an officer that it was really going to sideline my wife's career until I was done.
Mm.
And me getting close to the end of my road, like, why not? Why not just bow out? Why not um focus on family? Because the last thing I want to do is chase success, or the Navy's definition of success was, which is promotion. Last thing I want to do is chase promotion to where it splits my family apart. Because to me, the definition of success is what's going on at my house, what's going on at my home, how I'm raising my kids, how I'm keeping my family together, how I'm loving my wife, how everything here stays blended how it's supposed to be blended, and not fractured. And I didn't feel like being an officer was going to help me. It would definitely make it a lot harder to do that. So to me, the only upside to being an officer was money, which has never meant a lot to me anyway. I mean, I'm I'm just a poor boy from Amish country, Ohio, so that's never meant a lot to me. But having strength at the house, having a fortified home, and a just a just a family that's banging on all cylinders, that's success to me.
I love it, man. I love it. I completely agree with you. I usually get asked a lot, "What, you got out of the Navy? Why would you do that? Like, you were supposed to be the next big pawn or something like that." And
Yeah, you were.
uh,
That you shocked me whenever you got out of the Navy, by the way. I was
um,
one of those guys. Like, I was one of those guys. "Ah, Larry's not in the Navy anymore." Yeah, I
I
even told
know,
my
I
wife,
know.
she's like, "Really? He was so good." "Yeah,
I
sure."
really do appreciate that. The Navy was so great to me, because of its leaders. Unfortunately, it didn't clash well with my home life and what I had going on back home, right? So when they send me to the wrong ship and I'm stuck there in Virginia for 102 days, when I had already taken 2 weeks of leave, and my wife had already flown down to California to go house shopping with me now that I'm back from deployment, and then they tried to keep me on the wrong ship because the first lieutenant of the GDub wanted me on that ship because he liked me and he wanted me to
Selfish.
do all the work for him. And
Selfish.
like, it messed me up on a lot of levels. I know you probably seen the movie Zero Dark 30,
Mm-hmm.
when Chick was writing on the whiteboard how many days that they knew exactly where Osama bin Laden was. I started
Mm-hmm.
doing that on the whiteboards throughout the ship in different offices, letting them know, hey, this is how many days I've been on the wrong ship. This is how many days I've been away from my wife, and this is how many days my productivity is going down. And this is how many days you're telling me to get out of the Navy. You're telling me to get out of the military. And some people might hear me say that and say, you just threw away a career. Actually, I ended up gaining one. I left for the elevator industry, and now I can say that I'm so blessed and thankful. I'll work a 70-hour week and have more money than I know what to do with. And even with me getting injured, I was very, very blessed to be able to still take care of time, because me and my wife got injured at the same time. She had to do another surgery on her knee because her knee surgery failed, and I tore my labrum, and I also tore the ligament behind it. So obviously my left arm's out of commission.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I was living off LNI, the state of or whatever, and with all my pay and benefits, even with the reduced wages, we didn't have to worry about money. We made it for 5.5 months. Uh, I don't know too many people who can say that about the job they currently have. And like, this is not like me bragging, or I'm just so appreciative. I I encourage every person who listens to this, once you leave the military, go get a blue collar job. Don't go to an office unless you like offices.
Right.
Go like, I work on elevators and escalators. I'm learning electrician school right now. I'm in school. As soon as I get done with this podcast, I got 4 hours of studying to do tonight, and I'm
Oh,
happy about it because I'm learning binary code, hexadecimal, SCRs, and everything that you could possibly wonder about electrician stuff,
yeah.
construction. It's all encompassed in elevator industry. So, and they hire you at $30 an hour right now. So why not start? Back when I was hired, it was like 24 or something, but that was
Mm-hmm.
with zero experience. You don't need shit. All you need to do is show up to work. You've been doing that for amount of time in the military,
Yeah.
and then bam, next thing you know, 4 years later, you're making $50 an hour. Why not? And then double time is any overtime is double time straight to it. No 1.5
Oh, wow.
mileage reimbursement cartage. Get a blue collar job. I'm begging people to do it. It's so great. And I'll never fit in an office. I swear too much. I love guns. I don't listen to what the news says. I hang out with
Yeah.
I talk to my neighbors. It's kind of a weird thing we do this day and age. I talk to my neighbors. But man, I never thought I was going to get out. And when I did, fuck, shit got rough. Um, I didn't plan on to get out like right when I was supposed to. I already got proof of reenlistment, all that. We ended up dropping the opportunity to reenlist because of the destruction it was causing in my home. And if home
Mm-hmm.
life ain't good, the military life ain't good. So I said, you know what, this is it. I won't say I threw in the towel, but I definitely took off the uniform, and the transition hit me hard. Like, I hope that you're not going through this, but the transition hit me like a ton of bricks. It was unexpected for me to leave the military. I just created who I've always wanted to be. I was the man that I needed in my life when I was growing up. I was
Right. Yeah.
honorable. I never cheated on my wife. I love my family. I was
Mm-hmm.
making money with the military. I had all the qualifications. I was in charge. I didn't want to be in charge, but I got put in charge. I don't know why. It sucked. But I had an opportunity to affect other people's lives. And wow, how great it can be to be put in a spot where you're able to affect other people in a positive way. I had everything.
Right.
And I always advanced because I studied my ass off. Like, it's really simple. You study hard, you get the qualifications, you advance, bam, life is good. A
Yeah.
lot of people couldn't balance the work life, but I had no other life because I was trying to create it with my wife. But the Navy, unfortunately, due to a couple poor leaders,
Yeah.
they screwed me out of my time in the military. And now I'm home. Now my life is different. I love my family, but the transition at first was really hard because I lost that camaraderie. Think about it, I lost my family, that I had when I lost my
Right.
dad.
Yeah.
I was on the ship. I
Absolutely.
lost him. I lost it all. What was it like for you?
So I like how you say how you lost your family and you lost it all, because I guess technology makes it a little easier in that aspect these days. Having been through the growth of social networking and smartphones and all that stuff, because there was guys that, like, on my first ship on the Kennedy, there was guys that I was roommates with, there was guys that I hung out with every day after work, that I worked with every day on the ship. I mean, just in depth, like basically brothers. And
Yes.
then when they transferred, man, never talked to them again for years, until Facebook became a thing, or MySpace. Uh, but 6, 7, 8 years goes by, and life goes on, and by the time you retouch base with them, they're married, they got kids, or they're divorced, or just crazy stuff. So I definitely know what you mean by losing the family. But I still got some guys, the 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 flight deck chiefs that I worked with on the Ike. Man, they were good dudes. Such tight crew, man. Such a tight crew. There was about 5 or 6 of us, and even the hangar bay guys, like just all the ABH chiefs on the Ike whenever I was there. It was just we were all relatable to one another. We all got along so well. So even whenever shit was hitting the fan or times were tough, or because the Ike is one broke motherfucking ship, man.
Yeah.
The complete opposite of the TR. You know, you'll be launching off of Cat 1, and then they'll be like, all right, well, Cat 1 just went down, so we need to move all the birds and open up Cat 2. And you're like, oh, Jesus Christ.
All of them? Are you sure? You don't want to just wait till it's fixed?
Yeah, you wish you
no
could.
No time, hurry up.
Right? So it just creates a lot of extra work whenever you get a busted ass ship. But to be around those guys, so just such a tight knit group of guys, it just made life through that broken ship a lot easier. And then being around a couple of them, there's one guy that was, I mean, his nickname was the Maestro because they actually wrote it on his eval that he was the maestro of the flight deck, because I mean, they say like, oh, no one's ever been able to operate a flight deck like him. And it's like, you hear these rumors and you're like, the like you said, the competitive part of you starts to come out, and you're like, I'm so curious to see if this guy's everything that the fleet says he is. And then you go there and you start working with him and you're like, Jesus Christ, this guy is good. Like there's just stuff that he does that, or it's just whenever you're 5 steps ahead of potential problems coming and you're able to just nip these problems in the butt before they even exist. And like, you can see him do this time and time again. And you can see other people not even notice that he's doing it, because that's how bad they are on the flight deck. You know, like they don't even realize that this guy's saving so much work, so much time, so much energy. I mean, so cool to be able to be around people like that. And it was just admirable to watch this guy work. So these guys were so tight knit. After we left, we all started a group chat on Messenger, and we talk to each other every morning, because we all get up and we all share Wordle and Quirtle. I don't know if you know what Wordle is, but it's it's a game that you do. It's the New York Times puts it out every day, where you get like a 5-letter word that you got to guess what the word is in 5 guesses, and it's just a little brain teaser every morning to get you through your coffee. And we share it with each other we call it it's our muster report. We call it our muster report. So every morning, every morning, if Adam's lacking behind, we'll be like, Adam, we need a complete muster. And then about 10 minutes later, you'll see his Wordle, he'll share it and everything. It's just something silly that we do. So being able to keep in touch that way is pretty cool. But as far as transitioning, man, you definitely miss it. I mean, I don't know if anybody that's been in the military, regardless of what your job was, where you worked, what branch, there's just something different about it. And it's really sad once it's gone. Like I remember walking off deck and going into the flight deck office. I remember talking to my flight deck officer and telling him, I don't think I'll ever do flight operations again. And it was just choking me up, because you take it for granted for so many years. And just to know that, you know, you're never going to walk underneath a hot exhaust again. You're never going to
not get hit, get hit in the face with the wing. I love seeing people get hit in the face and be okay. But seeing people get hit in the face with the wing, you know, that feeling, oh my God, I should have put my head down. Now you know for next time.
Yeah. So never spotting a cat again, never just seeing, they call it controlled chaos, or, you know, the chaotic orchestra that is the flight deck operations, and just knowing that it was all over, you know, surreal moment. So that was super sad. But like I said, I was never married to the military like some people are, because some people can't let it go. Being able to walk away whenever I did, you know, I still had 4 years of eligibility for senior chief left. That pretty sure that, I mean, you can't predict the future, but it could have been in the cards for me, I believe. But being able to calmly walk away from it, because family is that's my true love. Like I really, I really love the time that I had in the military, and I'm really grateful to be able to serve my country for 20 years. But man, I just love being with my family. I love being home. I'm a stay-at-home dad now. Like I'll get another job someday, but like right now, I'm just doing my daughter's homework every day. You know, I'm making sure that my son brushes his teeth in the morning. You know, I'm doing those little things and not doing them in a hurry because I got to be somewhere. I'm doing them and enjoying them and really taking it all in.
That's a dream come true. Hearing those words, I know that there's light on the other side of the tunnel for me. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, retirement. I love how everybody around me seems like they're going so slow, and I'm always been envious of that. I feel like I can't relax. There's a lot of things that come with leaving.
But you will, I don't care however, I don't know, man. Like I said, I don't think we were ever that close to friends, but if it's one thing I know, it's that I don't think going slow is in your blood.
Oh
I don't
no.
think you can't have idle hands, man. My brother, he can't have idle hands. Even
Hmm.
if it's his day off, he'll still get more work done on his day off trying to relax than what I do on a normal day. So
I there's only one thing that really helps me slow down and breathe and relax. It's just being around my wife or shooting. You know, shooting is my number one decompression. Something about hearing a target go bing after I pull a trigger is just so relaxing.
pretty,
There's nothing more
pretty
relaxing.
expensive decompression these days.
It can be, but I really encourage everybody to go out to brownells.com and get a 22 conversion kit for your AR-15. Save some money. Save some money. I'll send those all day. Yeah,
Yeah.
bring the kids out and have them shoot as well. But I love you know how you talked about that, having a piece of you that you need to eventually you need to let go. You do need to move on. It can still be a part of you, but having that little group, the group chat you have in the morning, the muster report, we have something over here similar. It's called a huddle. So it's this group over here called Merging Veterans and Players, and they take prior athletes and prior military individuals, and they mix them together because there's some weird underlying issue that they've been having. When
Mm-hmm.
when athletes leave the athlete world, they take off that uniform. They don't know who they are. They're having identity issues, trying to figure out what to be passionate about. They spent all
Yeah.
these years as a kid growing up, and then bam, you tear your pec, and you're done with NFL. You don't know who
Yeah.
you are, and then the Hennessy comes out, and next thing you know, you're getting a bunch of DUIs, and they're blaming it on the news on brain trauma when you're really having some identity trauma as well. So I
Yeah.
love that they mix that with the take off the uniform issue. Obviously, they're very different, but there's this weird commonality that can be found between people who are trying to figure out who they are, kind of thing. And some people do,
Yeah.
like you said, they don't know who they are once they leave. They do not.
It's sad too. It's sad too because I watch people be uber successful in the military and rise to ranks that just like Godfather level, Master
Mhm.
Chief, CWO Force, all this stuff, and then they retire and a couple years later, man, they're dead. Like honestly, like they're dead. They did all this for and they just don't know how. Even their body doesn't know how to operate, and everything just slowly. I don't know, man. It's kind of a scary thought.
It is a scary thought, and that's why I'm very thankful that you have your family and you prioritize. You have your priorities in order, is what I would say. A lot of my friends
Yeah, but those are
haven't done a
my
good job of
priorities,
that.
though, because
Yes.
I know people who are very successful at doing both things.
Hmm.
I know guys who are great husbands and great fathers to their kids, and they're lieutenant commanders in the Navy. They came up and went the LDO route and climbed the ranks, and they've been in for 26 years, and they still work late hours, but they still are able to make it work at home. I think one, you got to find the right woman. You got to find a woman who's independent enough to be able to put up with that. And I won't say
Hmm.
put up with that, but maybe that's what makes that woman thrive. Maybe, your spouse at home being independent and thriving on that is what you need to be able to go to work. But like for me, that's not what it was like for me. And for me, I wanted to be that for my wife because my wife, she just put on her anchors. She's a chief now. I mean, the last 5 months, last 6 months, she's been gone for 5 months of it. I mean, she did the Com2X on the Bush, and then she left with them on their deployment. She got back 2 weeks ago. Now she's leaving again tomorrow. But, you know, she's a hell of a chief, man. My wife is a hell of a chief. She'll be a better chief than I ever was. She's a hell of a sailor. She's all about her people. She's got the same priorities and the same outlook and the same approach to the Navy as I did, but she's just better at it. So, and I don't have any problem admitting that. Like, she's fucking good.
Some people are just great at, then they find their thing. And yeah. I love that she has, I love that.
My wife is, she's an air traffic controller, and she can control the shit out of some aircraft, but she takes better care of her people than she does the aircraft in the sky. And what better way to help her and support her and show my love for her than to make sure that whenever she never has to worry about home. When she leaves, I got this. I'll take care of the home front. I'll make sure that our kids are growing up the way that they're supposed to be growing up. And you go out and do your thing and not have to worry about anything going on back here.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, you might be husband of the year. I gotta step up my game.
About that.
I love how you talk about your partner, man. That's super awesome. I don't think enough guys, like, and that's just my perspective. And I don't think enough guys are super proud of the women. You know, there's so many different things and qualities that we all can bring to the table. And when someone's in their element, they're in their element.
Yeah, it's so crazy because I still think all the way back the first time I watched the movie 300, the way that he talked about his queen, and the way, like, at the beginning of the movie, whenever that dude came in and was disrespecting his wife and all that stuff, and then, like, he kicks him in the well and says, "This is Sparta. Like, we don't fucking treat our women like that around here," and, you know, and like, I always hung on to that. Like, I didn't even know my wife at that time, and I wouldn't know my wife for another 5 or 6 years after seeing that movie. But the way Leonidas treated his wife in that movie, man, I was just like, dude, this guy's a fucking dude. Like, he is a man's man, and he can still have that kind of passion and affection and treat his wife like a queen. Like, that's all I want to do. Like, and there's nothing wrong with that, man.
Nothing wrong with it. Yeah, I don't think I can't even remember the last time I complained about my girlfriend who became my wife. I just don't. I don't. It doesn't happen. Like, if I want to do something differently, we discuss it. If she wants to do something differently, we discuss it. We don't even argue anymore. We got to the point where we're like, hey, you know, we're both passionate about this. It's obvious we care about each other and we care about the situation. Let's just figure it out. And and that's like a mutual understanding. And I love seeing her thrive. And even with a messed up leg and going through, like, recovery, the day after surgery, she was studying for her hair finals. You know, damn, like, as soon as she finished hair school, it was bam, right to studying. She takes her boards in 2 weeks to get her hair license, and I know she's gonna kill it. But I love seeing people in their element, man. And you being a great dad, her, you know, rocking it out, being having anchors on that car device after all this time. It's awesome. It's awesome to see. So what advice would you give to somebody who is thinking about leaving the military?
Oh boy. Oh, for one, you got to know that you're ready, because I see both sides of it. And I've seen both sides of it coming up through the ranks. There's people that I've had work under me that I try to get to stay in. Like, hey man, just do one more tour and all this, because I see me in them. I was just a one tour guy. I was getting out, but I didn't have my affairs in order, and I didn't have a plan. So I stayed one more tour, and eventually I made a career out of it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Today, there's a lot of negativity. Like, these kids that want to do their tour and get out, boy, they really love spreading the negativity, the FTN, the shit my LPO says, the decelerate your life, all that shit. Like, there's some jokes in there that are funny, but man, a lot of it is just insecurities. A lot of it is kids who don't want to be in the military for whatever reason, whether they can't hack it, whether it wasn't the right fit for them. But instead of just making that their journey, it becomes more comforting to them to try to bring other people with them. And they start this negative praise about the Navy. I guess you would say quiet quitting was in the Navy long before it was popular on the internet. And there's nothing wrong with staying in the military. And first thing you need to do is, if you want to stay in, I've seen kids get out of the military basically peer pressured out. Like they didn't want to just say that. It's like it's a bad thing it's not cool to say that you enjoy the Navy.
Yeah, you're a lifer, or
pride in your job. Yeah,
like a trend. It's a trend to get out.
It's so trendy to just not like the Navy. And like, you see people that'll get a Navy tattoo or something, and they get clowned and they want to cover it up around their friends and all that stuff. Like, dude, if you enjoy it, take pride in it.
Yeah.
It's not to say that you still can't be friends with these people. Like, got some of the guys that come to my reunion every year. Oh, they were single term sailors all the way, and they knew it, and they had a plan, and we supported them, man. Like, I knew that there's a guy that I went to that would work for me, Cutright, man. He had his affairs in order. Cutright was going to the University of Illinois. He was going to do this and do that, and it's like, cool, man. I support you. But we're still friends. He's a one-term guy. He didn't like the Navy. He was a bud stud, and then he had to work and crash. So I get it, man. Like, you joined the Navy for one reason. It didn't work out. And then you had to sit around and do another 3.5 years. So I get why you don't like the Navy. But he didn't tear down people that did, you know? So first and foremost, find out if it's what you want to do. And make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons. Don't be doing it because you feel that pressure, because there's nothing wrong with staying in. There's nothing wrong with doing another term. But man, the biggest thing is just having your affairs in order. Oh my gosh. I see sailors all the time get out just because they finally have that opportunity to take that part of their life back under their control. So that's what they want to do. I'll never forget, on my first boat, I went to boot camp with a guy who was an AO, and then I extended on my ship for a year, and he got out. And about 6 months after he got out, I was in Jacksonville, Florida. He was outside a Gate gas station asking for money. And I walked in there to get gas, and I didn't recognize him on the way in, but on the way back out, I was like, holy shit. Like, I went to boot camp with this guy, but he was one of those FTN guys and just sat around collecting a paycheck until it was time to get out, and never set himself up for success on the other side. And I could not believe that he was homeless. Or maybe he wasn't homeless, I don't know, but he was definitely outside the Gate gas station asking for money. And I felt so bad. I wanted to like take him under my wing and take him back to my apartment, but it wasn't like one of them things where I was living by myself. I was on my last 6 months. I didn't renew a lease there, so I was couch surfing with some friends until I was leaving for my next duty station. So I didn't really have that kind of position to help him. But man, that was just that's a stain on my brain, that you got to have some sort of plan. You got to be ready.
Oh yeah, you have to.
I think in today's economy, you got to be ready, and you got to have a backup plan too.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, one thing I was gonna say about all those people who said that say FTN and then unhappy, you got to remember one thing is this: the Navy is not just your upper chain of command that you're pissed off at. The Navy is the people next to you that care about you a lot. You might even not even know they care about you. The Navy is me. The Navy is my family, and the Navy is the people that and the families that make it possible to fill these slots so that people don't get drafted and conscripted. So being disgruntled and frustrated, I get it. It's easy to listen to bad leaders, but just because the Master Chief put out to the Navy says lower your standards, and you say, oh, you know what, fine, you know what, and you get frustrated. I understand being frustrated at stuff like that, where people say lower your standards when there's high suicide rates in the Navy, and there's a lot of issues that a lot of commands are going through. I think I would personally not go to a ship where there was just 2 suicides and say, y'all need to lower your standards. Those aren't necessarily words I'd personally use, but
yeah,
you don't need to carry that same negativity, don't let it take seed in your heart and spread to the rest of the world, because yeah,
Right.
you'll never know how tough it is until you hear about what your guy next to you is going through. The person who got his mom, I remember going on getting deployed, and somebody was very sad, and I said, "What happened? What was wrong? Is everything okay back home?" He said, "My little brother was stabbed to death today." And I'm like, "Oh my God, they got to get you home." And they said
Right.
my family never adopted him properly. He's not my immediate family. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, like things like that. I get when
Right.
people, you never know what he's going through, and your positivity might help him through the day. And we can all help each other look out for each other in that sense. I mean, I think it's more than essential to look out for each other. So mental health is obviously a huge issue. Like, I remember people wanting to and trying to commit suicide when we were deployed back over in 2015. And we had one of the best crews the Navy's ever had. Like, we can all make
Yeah.
jokes and say it was, but there, stats don't lie. Everyone's saying it. I really had a difficult time finding out, especially this year. I've lost a lot of people who we deployed with, and people who I've known throughout my life, to suicide. Unfortunately, mental health is a huge issue stemming from people leaving the military. Some people are still in the military when they make that decision to pass the pain, and it's a tough thing. What would you say to somebody if they were a sailor under you and they came to you saying, "Hey, I'm really not feeling too hot, and I don't want to get kicked out of the Navy, but I'm having some mental health issues." What's one thing that you would personally recommend to them to help them kind of refocus up, maybe change their mood or improve?
Oh man, that's so hard to sum up in one thing.
Mhm.
Because I had my own struggles with mental health.
Okay.
Uh, I realized through my own, so just to take a step back, I got a traumatic brain injury when I played rugby.
Mhm.
I got a traumatic brain injury when I went IA to Bahrain. I got jumped by Army MPs on base trying to break. They were actually beating up another guy. This was late at night. I was on my way to Midrats, walking by the smoke pit, and they were actually jumping another Navy guy. And I went and pulled that guy out of there and told him to run, and he took off running. And I never even got to turn back around before they just started jumping me. And I had a traumatic brain injury from that. And then on Com2X on our workup cycle, I got blown down by an F-18
Yeah.
because the pilot didn't release the brakes, and he was trying to pull forward and couldn't figure out why. So he just came up on power with me right behind him,
Mm.
picked me up and launched me. And
I'm thankful you're still here after that. When I think I came up to visit you at the crash shack, and you're like, "Yeah, I'm just a little torn up, but I'm all right." And I'm like, "Damn, that's a tough motherfucker."
yeah, I was under concussion protocol. Like the SMO wouldn't let me go back on deck, I think, for almost 3 weeks.
Mm.
And 2.5 weeks or something like that, because I landed on my head, cracked my cranial, had abrasions all over me, bruised a rib. It was a pretty rough blowdown. Yeah, the air boss said, "Boy, if that had been anybody else but Bliss, they would have got blown over the side." But Bliss was big
Yeah.
enough to be able to stay on the deck.
Thank God, man. Thank God.
But no, I got those three TBIs, and then I didn't realize that I went to shore duty. I did instructor duty and taught crash and salvage for 3 years down in Pensacola. And whenever I got back to the fleet on the Ike, started started working the flight deck again, I just started noticing these regressions, and things weren't as natural as they used to be.
Mm.
And I wasn't able to go from point A to point B, and wasn't able to forethink and get steps ahead, or create this symphony that keeps flight deck ops moving smoothly. I just wasn't able to do that like before. And at first I was like, well, it's just rust. I got to knock it off. I've been on shore duty for 3 years, and the more time went by, the more it wasn't changing, and I couldn't figure it out. And instead of talking to anybody about it, I tried to just kept trying to fix it myself. And the more times I failed, the more anxiety built up inside of me. to the point where I was, I'd be in my crash office and I'd bite down on my float coat and just scream as loud as I could into my float coat, like biting into it so that kind of nobody else could hear me. But just knowing that I wasn't who I used to be, and knowing that I wouldn't be able to, I didn't think I'd ever be able to get it back, created a lot of anxiety in me. And, the flight deck officer that was there specifically recruited me and wanted me to come to the Ike because he wanted me to work underneath of him. And then you start thinking about that, and you start thinking about how people thought so highly of you, and then now you're letting them down because you can't operate the way you used to operate. It really starts creating some ugly thoughts and ugly times in your head.
Yeah.
And I tell you, it really started taking over after I was on board about a year. And it's pretty cool that I had a master chief that was just able to see it. He was able to see that I wasn't, and he had only known me for that year. He didn't know me from any other time in the Navy, but he knew me enough to know that something wasn't right. And he was able to take me in and talk to me, and basically be able to, he got me to be vulnerable enough to admit to myself that I needed help. And man, you want to talk about a moment. I haven't sobbed like that since my dad died. Like, I was sobbing because I didn't want it to be true. Nobody ever wants that shit to be true, man. Everybody wants to be old reliable, especially if you got a strong work ethic. Sometimes mental illness can really hide in people with strong work ethics because they don't want to be known as that person.
Everybody wants to be the hero to their own story.
Yeah. I just didn't, I was so ashamed of it. I spent so much time trying to fix it myself without anybody discovering it. I didn't even know that I was walking around looking like a different person. And I know for a fact that if that master chief noticed it in me, other people had to have noticed it in me too. I know my wife noticed it in me. My wife was trying to get me to get help. And man, so thankful to that master chief for getting me the help that I needed, and helping me work through my issues. And man, I can't, I don't, man, it's so hard to say what I would say to somebody that came to me, because that's half the problem. If nobody goes and asks for help.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, people do ask for help. I'm not gonna say nobody asks for help, but like,
a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't.
There's a lot of shadows walking around out there, and I mean, I was one of them, so it's kind of hard. You gotta be able to. It's being able to get over it, being able to get over yourself, being able to get over the shame. I was just so embarrassed. I was just like, man, I'm going to let so many people down. I like, just, there's a stigma, man. You want to talk about a fucking stigma? When I was getting my help, I mean, the chief's mess that I went to, whenever I went and got my help, that command, that chief's mess that I became part of, I might as well not even have been a member of it.
And that's pathetic. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool that they were like, oh, hey, anything you need, any help you need, you just let us know. We're there for you. There's a lot of, there's a ton of shit that people say just to say it.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of training that people do just to get through it. And they need everybody to sign the muster report. And it's fucking sad, because that going through that made me realize that I don't want to go back. I just want to get out and be done with it after being part of that mess and after having basically no existence in there and people just not really giving a shit. Even when I tried to participate in stuff, they be like, when you walk by people in the hall, P-ways, and they just like don't acknowledge you. And I know you never went through the season and you were never a chief, but like
that never happened with Chiefs. Everybody greets each other.
That's not how Chiefs operate. And to be like the only two people in a P-way and walk by each other and they don't acknowledge you,
or they treat you like you're broken or something.
Yeah. So that sucked. Yeah, that was a real shitty time. Thankfully, I still had the guys that I was on the Ike with that I could talk to. They really helped me get through it. And but man, I'm telling you what, if somebody ever came to me, first of all, I'm going to make sure they get what they need. I'm going to make sure they get taken care of the same way that Master Chief took care of me. But I would say to people who aren't getting the attention that they think that they need, at that point, don't be afraid to go outside your chain of command to get that help. Don't think that those 3 and 4 or 5 people are your only options. You got the CMC, and if he ain't working, if he ain't giving you what you need, you can go outside of him. I mean, you can go, I just wouldn't quit. Keep spreading those wings and going further and further and talking to people, because, just like you said, passing the pain, I've been on the other side of it. And I was never suicidal in a sense, but I did have a lot of morbid thoughts. I did have a lot of thoughts where I'd drive home from work and I'd get in the express lane and I'd tell myself, well, it's a far less likelihood that I'd die in a vehicle crash if I'm in the express lane. I should just stay in the other lanes in case I could get in a lot higher chance that I get in a car crash and die over there. So never had thoughts of like killing myself, but there was a lot of thoughts of I'm wasting everybody's time by me being here. So
and that's super tough to go through. Like I've definitely gone through my own struggles, and a lot of that I was able to combat with fitness. But ultimately, to say that there's just one approach, from my experience, didn't work with me. Fitness was great, but I think it was the camaraderie I found through fitness, through bodybuilding in the area, that really drove it home for me. Creating new brothers and sisters, spending time around my family. But like when I came back from the military, I had everything. I had a wife who loved me to death. I had, that's like, what more could I ask for? This is the exact person I thought I needed. And you can have all the money in the world, the house, the car, the trophy wife, the kids are happy. Everything could, as far as society standards, could be all checks and balances. But on the inside is what really matters. And I know it sounds kind of corny or childish to say that, but there's nothing corny about saying that you want to hurt yourself. There's nothing corny about it. It's a very serious thing, or feeling that way, even worse.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I always recommend that people would reach out, because, we've lost, just recently we lost another red shirt from deployment, and it was tough to see the pictures on the internet. And I try not to remember names, because it's hard for me to come to terms with the fact that I'm never going to see the people again. But every time I see that picture, oh no, what happened? I already know what happened, and it's a big issue. It's a big issue we're dealing with in the Navy, throughout the military, and there's no reason our men and women should feel that they should have to end their lives, sadly, because when they come back from the military, you just came back from a potential death. You signed up, you went somewhere where the military told you to, and you came back. Thank you. Thanks for doing that. Don't feel like it has to end here. Create something like your messenger group, that you have. You have to find your huddle or your morning muster, or whatever it is that works for you. Because
I don't think it's just, I think there's a lot of I'm trying to word this right. There's people think that only combat PTSD is like kind of sufficient for having mental illness, but like people don't understand, like being in the military in general, the sacrifices that you make, just like we were talking about earlier, how people leave and you just never see them again.
Never.
And you become becoming having all this loss, it numbs you. Even though they didn't die, the fact that they were a big part of what made your heart beat so loud, and then they're gone, and slowly your heart just doesn't beat as loud as it did before. And then maybe somebody new comes along and you're like, all right, my heart's starting to beat loud again. And then now they're gone, or now you got to leave. And when you leave, that's the big disconnect, because now you're cutting off from everybody.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you're getting just like what you went through, man. It's super hard to be told that you're going to go one place and then you go completely across the country to another place. Mm-hmm. Man, that's like people in the civilian world, they don't have to put up with that. They don't have
They
to
would
go
just
through
quit.
stuff
I'm
like
like,
that.
oh, you want me?
Yeah.
You want me to spend how much to come home to my wife? Goodbye. It ain't happening.
Yeah.
I can do a 1 hour flight from California to Seattle. Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
I can do that almost every weekend. We can figure it out. I'll just eat top
Right.
ramen. I'll just suffer on the inside.
Yeah.
But coming back and transitioning out, I didn't know there's no words that could equip me unless someone said word for word, hey, you're about to mourn the loss of 5,000 sailors you deployed with.
Yeah.
And you're grieving. You're in this grieving period. But I don't know if that's the appropriate word. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the dead or whatever, but it's almost like you're grieving the loss of, and everything you just experienced leaving your family back home and your friends. You left all them, and now you're leaving all your people who you just spent a lot of time and you got really good and close with. You left all them, and now you're back, and the whole world's different. There's new apps. You got touchscreen phones. Yeah. There's so many different ways about it, but it's never easy for anybody.
I left for the military 2 months after graduating high school, so I didn't really know a lot about the world. A lot of my world was trained around the military and my understanding of the world. When COVID hit, and a lot of these nurses and stuff that had to go in and work the ERs, and they would be working every day for like 2 weeks straight. And God bless them, man, it's a lot of hard work. Yeah. But the amount of praise that the nation was giving them on news networks, on morning shows, on commercials, all over the social media and stuff, really, really, put it home to me at just how much we do sacrifice, because and it goes unnoticed. A lot of the sacrifices that we make that go unnoticed, because, and I'm not taking anything away from what they did and what those nurses and doctors did, because they did work their asses off. But the fact that they got that much love and that much praise, some of them, having to work for 2 weeks straight, and I'm thinking, man,
people deploy for
that's the
shortest Army
life.
deployment I've ever heard. The shortest deployment I've ever heard is for the Army was a year, like 12-month rotation, 365 days in a war zone.
Right. And it just blows my mind, that level of sacrifice that we can teach ourselves to get used to. But man, it just slowly chips away at you. In the Navy, we make sacrifices that other branches don't have. I'm definitely not going to compete against other branches, because everybody has sacrifices. Yes. But like when you're on a ship and your only way to communicate is through email, man, that can really drag you down, especially when communication is at your fingertips 24/7 in today's society. And now you go out on a ship and you're forced to only communicate through email.
And then they shut it down because you're in a danger zone or whatever.
Or River City 1 or this and that. Like
they think no one's going to see the giant floating city on the water.
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious.
Like I did my IA, I went over there for a year, and, I still had my own cell phone that I could call home from every day if I wanted to, or text, or I could still go to the library at the K-Span and Zoom, or, not Zoom. What am I trying to say? It's not Zoom. It's the older version of Zoom, Skype.
Oh,
You
Skype,
know,
yeah.
Skype back and forth with family members at the time and stuff, and you could still see their faces and stuff. But that's one of the things that the Navy doesn't get to do. All that stuff is gone, and you're stuck with minimal communication in a world that communicates at light speed now at their fingertips, and then also shoved into a cube 3 by 6 feet with 90 other people in the same room. I mean, it's
things get weird, man. Things get weird. Yeah, things can be difficult, and every branch sacrifices in their own way. Every single individual has their own amount of sacrifice they go through, and I never compare one to another. Like everybody who deploys and sacrifices, they all sacrifice something. So
everybody sacrifices.
Everybody sacrifices.
But the way that we rallied around our nurses and stuff, and rightfully so, they should have been rallied around.
Yeah.
Really put it home to me that we don't rally around our troops enough, because if you want to start rallying around people for sacrificing, man, once you take on, people need to
go down and stand outside of VFW, or stand outside the VA and ask somebody before they walk in there to ask for help for mental health, and ask them, hey, where did you serve in? Why don't you tell me a little bit about it? The stories are insane. And I have a lot of friends who want to come on the podcast, but they're so super, super nervous about sharing it because they don't want to have to come to terms with the fact of what they actually went through. Like, they know what they went through and they share it here and there. And I never push people to come on if they don't want to come on. This is just an opportunity to kind of bridge that gap, to let people know, hey, this is what it's like to serve in the military. This is some of the experiences that you or your brother who signs up might have, or your sister who has who might want to sign up in the future. This is what they might be facing. This is what, and for the people who do listen, I love it, because I've received so many messages throughout the week. Man, I just finished this episode and I had no idea that you could get blown up, and they would tell you to just change your socks. or I had no idea that you had to, you were on the phone with the nurses on the hospital. For me, my story, I was sitting there on the phone with the nurse giving permission to pull the plug on my dad while we were off the coast of Florida, and I couldn't get back home. Nothing could work out. I couldn't do anything. Like, my wife was my beacon, and I found out he was dying over email. I found out I had to email back and forth, to find out stuff. Like, I was a dysfunctional wreck for a lot of years, but my family that was created came and supported me. And I hope that everybody who does transfer out of the military does find their morning muster, or their huddle, or their sense of camaraderie, the family that we have. Yeah.
You really need it. You need to be around people who understand what you've been through. And I think it's a shame that VFWs and American Legions all across the country are kind of dying off, because that was a lot of people's morning musters. That was where a lot of people went to be around people who understood what they've been through.
Oh, hell yeah.
I think that it would be just so awesome if a lot of these places could just start getting a resurgence, like a lot of our younger society could find home in these places, because just like I said, we don't compare branches and what people's sacrifices are. Just like you can go in there right now and meet an old man who was in Vietnam, who really went through some fucking shit.
Oh yeah.
And that person will take the time to sit down and listen to you and listen to your stories, because they understand, and they know that your sacrifice meant something too.
Hell yeah, absolutely. And I love that, branching and bridging the gap between, multiple generations. It's so beautiful to me. I've had military service in my family. My grandpa was on the ground in Vietnam. The other grandpa was flying above Vietnam. And for me and my family, it's really important, because this mental health journey, and me sharing some experiences that other people have struggled with over this series, Service and Sacrifice, and also other ones, is very important to me, because my own grandfather took his life after he came back from Vietnam. Not everybody, not everybody understands why that old guy who sits on his front porch with the with the Vietnam vet hat might sound so frustrated and is always angry and sad and looks like they're hurting all the time. Not everybody understands what type of caliber of human being you had to be to get through that shit and even come back to society and function.
Right. Yeah.
It's something new.
Absolutely.
And they do spotlight it and I want to just recommend this to you and all my listeners as well. The movie Merging Veterans and Players. So it's a new one. The MVP group came together with the guy who played for the Seahawks, and he wanted to. His name's Nate Boyer. He was a former Green Beret, and he is a great human being. I got to meet him and talk with him for a little bit, and wow, the type of person that he is and the things he's been doing for vets is just it's overwhelming, man. To hear out of his mouth, he won't talk about it, so I had to ask somebody else, and then I had to bring it up to him to ask him questions. Because that's how humble he is. But he came out with a movie. Sylvester Stallone helped put it all together, and he acted in it. He did a great job, and he also directed it. And it's called Merging Veterans and Players. It's like $2 to rent on Amazon Prime, and I really recommend you watch it. I'm going to put out a disclaimer though. It is about the transition out of the military and how essential it is to have some support system. How essential it is to not close yourself off from feeling vulnerable. It's okay to say that we're hurting or we're messed up or fuck.
Mm-hmm.
I went through some shit. I might need to get it off my chest from time to time, decompress. And so
yes, absolutely.
I really recommend you watch it, and it definitely helped my family experience some things that they didn't know that I was going through. They got to see, oh my God, like, do you feel this might be why you're acting abrasively or you're frustrated or you look like you got resting bitch face all the time. I guess I don't always smile. I think I'm smiling, but I'm not a lot of times. And as soon as my brain starts moving and the gears start spinning, I'll spiral. I'll just have I can't get my mind to slow down. So shooting's my thing. Spending time with my dogs and my family is my thing, and now veteran outreach is my thing. And doing this podcast, which is it's overwhelming to hear your life experience. I never knew that you were from Ohio. Well, obviously I saw the Ohio State merch and stuff, but I never knew like how you grew up. I never knew I never was able to find somebody who related to being disappointed and having a moment of disappointment with your parents when you did sign up. I had that. It hit super hard. And I really do appreciate what you provided today and the things you shared. I love how you honor your women. I love that you're a stay-at-home dad now. You can spend time with your kids. You're molding your children into great Americans just like yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't just appreciate your service. I also appreciate your camaraderie for the other sailors and for me as well, because you were seeing somebody like you. I was able to kind of untwist these thoughts that were going in my head. I lost right before we deployed. It was when I lost my dad. So I lost him when we were underway, when I was long ass Com2X underways, and things were weird. And I was able to learn how to be normal again just by being around people like yourself. So I appreciate you. You did more for me than I could ever put in words, man. And I really do appreciate you.
Oh, wow. That means a lot to hear stuff like that. It really does. Because that's just awesome. Thank you so much for saying that to me, because just having like I said, and like my wife said, when we found out that you got out, we were like, what? Like, that dude's the sailor, that dude's like Joe Navy. Like, he is the next great sailor, and he's getting out. And it just sucks, through this podcast, I just found out that it sucks that it was a few bad leaders that kind of led you down that road.
Yeah.
So unfortunate, man.
Yeah, when shit's not good back home, like, it's not good back home. And listen, if I was my wife, I would have, like, obviously she didn't, but if I'm my wife, I would have been like, listen, you got to get the fuck out of the Navy. Like, this is not working out. But she never once said that. It was ultimately just her expressing herself and me saying, okay, yeah. And did I have some bad days where I had to come to terms with it? Yeah, fuck yeah, I did. I knew who I was, and I was scared of not knowing who I was. And that was probably the last time I've been scared, except for when I see spiders at my house. But no, honey, get the gun. No, but that was it was overwhelming for me, and there's a lot of people who felt the same thing when when they got told you're being medically discharged.
Hmm.
I felt like I got the ground ripped up from under me, and I just started falling, and then I spiraled, and
You know
yeah.
what? One more thing I would like to say
Mhm.
is, when I went through my and I still have some mental struggles here
Yeah.
and there. I still have anxiety attacks. I don't like being around people near as much as I used to. I'm kind of reserved in my way, but when you start going to these groups and you start reaching out and there's people that have ideas, don't ever don't ever listen to an idea and just cast it away like right away. Give some of these things that you've never done before, give them a shot, because I really found, like you said, shooting, I really found peace in horticulture. I
Hell
never did
yeah,
it,
horticulture is
never
awesome.
never did it before in my life, and now my backyard looks like a botanical garden. Like, I completely understand why you see old people out there on their hands and knees like gardening all the time in the summertime and stuff. Like, I just fell in love with everything about it. And it's so, I would have never, you would have never been able to guess that. I would have never been able to guess that I was going to do something like that. But like, when you put your time and your passion and your love and your care into a plant, and you watch it grow, and you watch this develop, and you just see all this, and then you just start watching all these butterflies coming around. You're like, they said that these butterflies were going to come around if I took care and grew this plant. And it's just so weird that stuff like that can bring such joy to your heart.
Uh-huh.
So don't, if
Yeah.
people give you an idea for something and you're not sure about it, give it a shot, man. Don't write it off. You never know whenever you're
Absolutely.
going to make some flowers grow and butterflies are going to warm your heart, like this
Yeah.
old 6'4", 300-pound guy from Ohio.
Well, creating life is we can all agree is beautiful. I love seeing things grow, and I don't care what anybody says. You could hate Lord of the Rings, you can hate everything about it, but when they describe hobbits having a love for watching things grow and celebrating
Hmm.
life, you know, I try to find stuff similar to that, because what makes them happy might not make me happy, but it can make I try to find that ultimate happiness. So I
Right. Yeah.
love, when I go out to my lawn, it's the summertime. I don't have a lot of grass, but I mow the grass and I'm like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
my shit. Find
Yeah.
out what your shit is. It's good. It's good to do. And
Hmm.
the Navy, just because you left the military doesn't mean you have to leave who you used to be. You can still celebrate it, and not just on Veterans Day. You can celebrate it every day of the week or
Oh
every day
yeah.
of the year. But you have to start living again. You cannot just become stagnant just because you leave the military, or you can just think about exactly how all your buddies were when you left. They were stagnant. They're probably doing the same stuff. Like I
Yeah.
know a lot of people who are doing the same stuff, and so I just distance myself from them. You don't want to be that when you leave the military. You want to create life and live and enjoy
Absolutely.
culture, watch movies. I love Disney Plus. Let me relive my childhood, so it's kind of fun.
That's true. My wife's
Mhm.
a huge Disney fan, and we watch all these old Disney movies with the kids, and Disney movies that I haven't seen in years. Like, I just introduced my daughter to The Sandlot like two
Oh
weeks ago.
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
man, she was loving it.
A
I
lot of
was loving it.
lessons. A lot of lessons. Don't fill up your whole mouth with chew.
Yeah. No.
Oh man. Well, I loved having you on, man. I really do appreciate your time. Where can people find you if they have any questions? Do you want me to just send you their messages?
Yeah, you can send them to me, because I don't have a lot of, the only social media I have is Instagram and Facebook. Like,
Awesome.
I
Awesome.
haven't gotten too into all the other stuff.
Yeah,
You
me
know,
either.
it
I don't think I
it
will.
takes, if I got a phone in my hand, that means I don't have my hands in the dirt, and that takes me away from my horticulture. So I like to be outside. So yeah, just
Yeah,
forward messages to me, or you can just tag me in whatever post you put on Facebook or
yeah,
whatever, so that people can get a hold of me that way.
absolutely, absolutely.
And thank you for everything that you're doing, and your
Yeah.
continued success and drive, man. It's so awesome. It's so refreshing to see.
That makes me super excited, because that's exactly what I hope to hear from people when they reconnect with me, is that I'm doing something positive. I'm continuing to do positive things. The best effect, the best currency in life is the effect you have on other people. And I hope to become rich as fuck. So it's just my personal goal, man, to
I'm
help
remember that.
help people, in a positive way, like just like you
Oh
do.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. Well, I appreciate you having you on, and everybody. This has been another episode of Off the Deep End with Eddie. I am your, as usual, still partially injured, but slightly more muscular than before host. And this has been another episode. If you like what we do here, please make sure to jump over to our Facebook page and like and subscribe. And if you really, really love what we do, send me a message, and I'd love to have you on.